Welcome troops, it's me, TheTacticalBrit, and as you can probably see by the title, Star Wars Battlefront 2 is coming to my channel, and what better way to kick it off with some exclusive footage of Starfighter Assault. Now I was lucky enough to head to a little event hosted by EA in Guildford over here in the UK to provide both feedback and capture some gameplay of this mode, Starfighter Assault. Now this is a work in progress build which is available at Gamescom 2017, and like I mentioned, we were down there to provide feedback as well as capture some gameplay. So some of the stuff you'll see here today may very well change when it finally enters the final version of the game. Today I wanted to hit you guys with a quick overview of Starfighter Assault as well as providing you my first impressions of this Gamescom 2017 build. Now Starfighter Assault is a very interesting game mode, specifically down to the fact that most people felt that the overall aerial and space combat in the first Battlefront game was kind of half-baked and didn't quite live up to expectations. Now Starfighter Assault essentially builds upon the entire premise of that and builds upon it in a way which adds a lot of depth to space combat and adds numerous layers of objective-based gameplay that I feel as though a lot of people are really going to enjoy. Now, to give you a little bit of backdrop to this, I haven't really played the first Battlefront game quite extensively, nor have I necessarily been the most adept Star Wars fan. I've watched all the films, but for me this was more about the gameplay experience. This wasn't really about being razzled and dazzled by all the good-looking Star Wars things, as fantastic as they did look, as you guys could see from some of the X-Wings and TIE Fighters and settings around here, but I kind of just wanted to jump into the game and see how it felt gameplay-wise, you know, how things were operating, and whether or not they kind of impressed me or didn't. Now, I've got to admit, upon some reflection of this gameplay and feedback session, I have to say that as a whole, Starfighter Assault has thoroughly impressed me as a game mode. I was quite surprised and taken back by the fact that I wasn't really expecting much from a sort of space combat game mode, but surprisingly, I was given something that provided a lot of depth and provided a lot of objective-based gameplay. So I'm kind of going to break this down into three segments. I'm going to talk about the ships and how they handle, I'm going to talk about the objectives in the game mode itself, and then I'm going to talk about the overall feel. So let's kick it off with the ships and overall combat and how they handle. And in that segment, everything just felt fantastic. You felt like each individual class of ship available, be it a bomber, an interceptor, or a general purpose fighter, just felt really well tuned. It felt like you were in control of everything that was going on, and you felt like each unique class of ship served a purpose which was unique to the objectives you had on hand, as well as just, you know, suiting your general kind of playstyle, you know? If you wanted to be something that was quick and speedy, you could be an interceptor and zip around the map, cause damage and fly away. If you wanted to be a general purpose fighter, you could achieve both attacking objectives as well as intercepting and fighting other combat craft as well. And if you wanted to be just a slow cruising but heavy hitting bomber, you could totally achieve that too. Now all of this is thrown into a mix with a combination of different star cards that can adapt each one of these individual classes, so I can have a fighter which is a bit more tanky, or I can have a bomber which is a bit more speedy, or I can have an interceptor that packs a bit more of a punch. You can manipulate and change these star cards in any given ways with the ones that are provided for you as well as the ones you craft, and ultimately it creates a system whereby your ship can change the dynamic of a battle based on the objectives that you're up against or just what you feel is necessary. If I find myself in a situation where I'm getting the crap kicked out of me by lots of different fighters, I can throw on some extra health to my general purpose fire and see if I can tune up the lasers a little. If I feel like my bomber needs to be a bit more of a tank, I can do that too. There's so many different available options to change your playstyle. I felt like it was just overall really impressive, and each individual ship kind of has its own space to come into its own and be a really impressive craft overall. The hero ships as classes as well sort of come into their own, be it the Millennium Falcon or the Scimitar, which I have gameplay videos available of if you're interested. Feel free to check them out, they'll be on screen now. And for the Scimitar and both the Millennium Falcon, they serve different purposes. The Scimitar was more of an assassin ship that sort of appeared and disappeared and caused lots of damage, whereas the Millennium Falcon was more of a big sort of tanky ship that kind of flew around, did damage, and took a lot of damage as well. So it feels like there's lots of variety on the general battlefield, which I was quite overall impressed with, and felt like it could be something that a lot of people would find interesting and fun to mess around with. It also added to the fact that with all the different kinds of ship classes and all the different star card combinations and hero ships available, that there was a huge amount of depth available on this game mode, and I feel like that's something a lot of people were looking for in comparison to the first game. Moving on to things like handling, and I know this is a department that lots of people are interested in, because I feel as though it wasn't necessarily done in the best way in the first game. Now this is something that's also been very surprising for me. I find in most games where I'm piloting some kind of craft, be it a spacecraft or a plane like in Battlefield 1, things just become either a spin fest or don't feel dynamic and fluid enough. You know, you either end up spending most of your time on this guy's tail, chasing him round and round in circles until one of you eventually makes a mistake or blows up, or you feel as though everything feels a bit too scripted and you don't really have enough control of what's going on. I feel like Battlefront 2 does a really good job of addressing some of these issues. So in terms of the sort of spin fest issue where people sort of end up chasing each other in circles, I felt as though this did happen a little bit, but we did provide some feedback which I feel as though is going to be very useful for Criterion to sort of change and adapt this in the future. But even in the current state it was in, it wasn't too bad. There were still issues where you could sort of like, you know, break away by doing a cool barrel roll or fly in between objects available on the map to break somebody trying to chase you or make you go into one of those spin fest loops of death until one of you makes a mistake. You could sort of barrel roll in between objects, you could fly close to other ships. There was enough you could do to try and shake people off from doing things. There was also the fact that the handling just felt very fluid as well. It was easy enough to slow down and accelerate or rotate your ship to sort of pull off different barrel rolls and maneuvers. There were scenarios where somebody would be on my tail and I'd kind of just screw them over by slowing down, breaking up to the left, speeding off and sort of jumping in between a few objects that were available on the map. And this is something that you can totally achieve. So the kind of spin fest cycle is a bit out the window. As for the whole sort of dynamicness and fluidness of the mode, I feel as though that's something that's been very much so nailed to a T. You feel very much in control of what's happening, whether it's maneuvers that you're pulling off or different combat situations that you're pulling off. One thing that I can remember completely from this capture event is when I was in the Scimitar ship, which, like I said, there is some gameplay available on my channel for, and I remember flying directly into a fleet of different fighters that were coming in, including the likes of Jack Frags, and I activated its cloaking ability, flew under these dudes, rotated my ship, came up back behind them, decloaked, and just absolutely obliterated them with all the firepower that I had. And you can pull off that kind of stuff. It's not an environment where everything feels really scripted and forced upon you. It's an environment where you can thrive off of being a very good pilot. I felt like there was a skill gap available in this game mode where certain people who wanted to continually be a pilot and wanted to focus on this game mode a lot could be some of the best of the bunch. They could do really cool maneuvers. They could learn their ships, learn their star cards, learn their hero ships, and be some of the best. Whereas some people who are perhaps newer to the game could sort of make their way up that skill gap and progressively get better at flying their ship and learning what it's about. I felt like by the time I finished this game mode, I had a really good understanding of what my X-Wing was good at and what my TIE Fighter was good at, and what kind of different star card combinations I could think of that would perhaps improve my game. And that level of depth and dynamicness is something I think a lot of people are going to appreciate, and it's certainly something that I appreciated. Moving on to Starfire Assault as a game mode as a whole, you know, lots of people were kind of interested to see what this game mode's about. And the best way I could describe it really to you is to liken it to Battlefield 1's operations. In Battlefield 1 operations, you get different sets of objectives that you need to attack and defend on both sides, and the same essentially applies to Starfire Assault, but in space, with cool Star Wars things. You know, there'll be situations where, you know, you're supposed to be attacking some kind of reactor core, some kind of defensive shield, you're supposed to be attacking some kind of cruiser ship that's available on the map, or you're supposed to be defending them. You know, both individual sides has lots of different objectives, and it kind of breaks down into two different columns. There's the main objectives, and then there's the side objectives. So you'll have main objectives like defend X target or attack X target, depending on what team you're on. Now, sometimes part through this objective, a side objective will be introduced into the game and try and change the dynamic of gameplay. So the attacking team will get like a fleet of Y-wing bombers that are all AI, but can deal heavy damage to the main objective, be it like a shield or a reactor core or something. Now, the attackers will have to defend these attacking Y-wings so they can do said damage, whereas the defenders will have to intercept these bombers and take out these AI before they actually deal damage to the objective. It's really cool. It allows people to mess around with different small mini objectives whilst focusing on the sole area of battle. It would be like introducing a third objective into operations randomly at times or points within the game, and I felt like it was a really cool way to make things a bit more interesting and mix it up partway through the mode. And the main objectives themselves are broken down into phases. So phase 1 will be attack or defend X. Phase 2 will be attack or defend X. Phase 3 will be, you know, do something like attack or defend this objective or reactor core. And it's really cool because each different phase goes across the map and introduces different sort of styles of play and different things that happen along the map. So for example, on Fondor, the first objectives are sort of out in the open, but the second objectives start moving into like hangar bays, and the third objective starts moving into the back of a Star Destroyer, and it just kind of takes you around the entire map and takes you into different areas which require different kinds of ships. So one of the objectives is inside like a small sort of duct on the ship that has lots of different power supplies inside it, or sort of defensive shields, and you have to fly in there and take them out. And these are really small, so you can't really fit a huge ship inside. So some people were sort of switching it up and saying, hey, you know, my X-Wing isn't pulling this off, let me be an A-Wing, which is a fast interceptor ship, which can go inside this, deal some damage, and then fly out really quickly. And because it's a lot smaller, it was more fit for purpose for this general objective. And it's like that in the entire mode, with different phases and different objectives and main objectives and side objectives, that you're constantly sort of consciously aware of, you know, is this ship more useful, or is this ship more useful, or should I do this, or should I try this? And I think overall it's so great. It's the reason I think Operations is a huge success on Battlefield 1, and I think it's going to be a massive success in Battlefront 2 as well. I think Starfighter Assault really comes into its own when it comes to objective-based gameplay. So I decided I'd round this up with a general feel of Starfighter Assault. Now, bearing in mind, this is the footage from Gamescom, this is a work-in-progress build, I have to say, at this present point, I'd probably give it around an 8.5 out of 10. There were some minor grievances with things that happened in the game, like balancing and stuff like that, but that's stuff that we provided feedback on so they could exactly work on that to make it better for the final release. But overall, I think the depth of gameplay is really impressive, the objective-based game modes are really impressive, and I feel like I'm actually going to have a lot of fun for once in piloting in any game, let alone be it, you know, specifically a Battlefront game. This will probably be the first time I actually take on a mode which uses ships and lets me command a craft of complete death and destruction. You know, it's not something I typically do in Battlefield 1, or I don't really play games like War Thunder, for example. But this is great for me, and I feel like it's a fine balance. It provides a skill gap, it provides depth of gameplay, and it provides objectives and fun. It also provides this massive scenic Battlefront background with Star Destroyers, Corvettes, with just everything you could possibly imagine going on, and I'm sure lots of you guys who are really avid Star Wars fans are going to love and appreciate it. So guys, that's it for my impressions video. Feel free to check out all the other videos I have available, Scimitar gameplay, Millennium Falcon gameplay, and even an unedited round from start to finish to let you guys know what this is all about. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you again soon in another video.